Let's look at the latest football scores. Gary Lineker 1, BBC 0. In a Daily Mail exclusive, doubts over Gary Lineker's future on Match of the Day grew this weekend after sources close to the presenter declared, "This is not Gary's last show. Gary will decide when he leaves." Will he indeed? If only you and I had such control over our professional destiny. If only we could square up to the boss and tell him or her that we decide when we leave. Now, the paper understands that the corporation's best-paid star is locked in a standoff with bosses over his £1.35 million pay package, amid frenzied speculation that he's on his way out, particularly since the appointment of a brand new director of sport who reportedly wants to shake things up and wants a younger audience. Ouch. Perhaps he also doesn't want the channel's flagship sports presenter to be someone who compares Britain's migration policy to 1930s Germany. Perhaps he doesn't want the main sports anchor on the network to refer to October the 7th, the single worst attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust, which sees its anniversary tomorrow, as the Hamas thing. But I've got good news for you, folks. The former England captain and part-time fried potato salesman is reportedly willing to accept a pay cut of £350,000, which would take his salary to a paltry £1 million a year for introducing football clips. How will he possibly cope? An exasperated source close to Lineker said, "Gary just doesn't deserve this." Poor Gary. 1 second, let me find the world's smallest violin. Things really kicked off on Friday when the Daily Mail saw a draft email from this new head of sport announcing that last night's Match of the Day would be Lineker's final show. Now, the Beeb refused to comment on the email, but notably failed to disown it or deny its existence. But the source close to Lineker said, "He's been a great presenter. People love him." Do they? Well, some do, but others can't stand him. When he was taken off air after his comments about Nazi Germany in relation to the Rwanda plan, ratings increased slightly. Who knew? It's almost like people tune into Match of the Day to watch the football highlights and don't really care who introduces them. Well, the source goes on, "Gary has enjoyed Match of the Day but doesn't expect to be there forever." Well, isn't that nice of him? It's a shame that he won't be there forever. I would have thought we might have stuffed him, but there you go. Now, yesterday, Lineker left his well-appointed London home to film Match of the Day in Salford. Oh dear, that is an awful lot of carbon for this eco-conscious presenter, isn't it? Now, on his way out the door, a Mail on Sunday journalist asked him whether last night would be his final Match of the Day. Lineker rudely dismissed the journalist, saying, "Be better. Be better." God forbid that these public figures, whose salaries are paid for by hard-up Brits, should be held to account. On arrival at Media City Studios in Salford, having pumped a few kilograms of carbon into the atmosphere to get there, Lineker avoided photographers and went in via a side entrance. Unusual for this notorious self-publicist to be so shy. Still, at least he didn't repeat his antics of last week when he told a reporter who asked him about his future on the show to, and I quote, "F off." That's right, Gary Lineker told the journalist to F off. Now, that's not very becoming, is it, of the face of our national state broadcaster and a professional Mr. Nice Guy. But then again, this is a man who preaches about the environment whilst broadcasting from air-conditioned stadia in the Middle East. A man who preaches about human rights and inclusivity whilst working for regimes where being gay is illegal. A man who bemoans our unequal society whilst battling HMRC in court to reduce his tax bill by over £4 million. This is a man who has made a mockery of the BBC's impartiality rules with an opinion on every major political issue that you can think of, and during the Euros, he got in trouble for wearing clothes from Next, a brand that he's paid to endorse, probably trying to save up his cash before that massive pay cut kicks in. I'll be honest with you, I think it's time to put this ex-footballer on the transfer market. He can go on a free for all I care. It's a red card and an early bath for St Gary. This Match of the Day presenter has had his day. It's time someone blew Gary Lineker's whistle. Your reaction, should Gary Lineker stay on Match of the Day? gbnews.com/your say. But first, tonight's top pundits, political consultant and commentator Suzanne Evans, TV News legend Michael Crick, and Conservative Party grandee Sir Michael Fabricant. Sir Michael, Gary Lineker, should he stay or should he go?
He should go and concentrate on his crisps. That's what I said.
Has he had his chips?
He's had his chips. I wish he'd just have his fish. But he is the most boring, tedious person, I believe. And I just cannot understand the weakness of the Director General of the BBC, who constantly puts up with Gary Lineker. You know, I used to work like Michael, but many, many years before Michael, for the BBC. I just find it incredible that he can make the comments that he does and still survive. He's paid to be a sports commentator, not a commentator on public morals, which is what he seems to do. And to compare Israel and the Rwanda policy with Nazi Germany is just distasteful. Why is he still working for the BBC?
Michael, you've worked at the BBC. I mean, can you explain whether Gary Lineker has breached impartiality rules or not? It's complicated, isn't it, because he's a freelancer?
It is complicated. And by the way, this is, the second bout of BBC bashing tonight?
Well, I tell you what...
I mean, you're getting a bit desperate.
What we're doing is we're asking questions about the Beeb, and I think we're entitled to.
It's quite right. No, it's quite right. We should hold all institutions to account. But you seem a bit
obsessed by the BBC. Especially ones we pay for.
That is an important consideration too. And actually, on this issue, I do think that Gary Lineker has got to stop. I think he's a superb presenter of Match of the Day, and I enjoy watching him. I think it's over the top to pay him, 1.3 million or whatever.
1.35.
Well, yeah. And I do think he has to shut up on the political front.
Hallelujah.
And if he can't, then I'm afraid it should be the end of the road, because I think that's really, really important.
It's interesting that you say that, because if you actually, listen again to my take at 10, I'm not criticising the BBC regarding this story, because I think that Gary Lineker has brought the BBC into disrepute, and I think he's destroyed their reputation for impartiality with his comments on Twitter and X and all the rest of it. I think he's harmed. We sort of agree there.
We sort of agree there. I think there are certain people in the BBC who are so big, even though they're not covering news and current affairs, they're so big that even if they're doing cookery programmes or sports programmes, they've got to be. They cannot be. I mean, if you're a sports presenter on Radio Lincolnshire, it doesn't really matter if you express a few political views. But if you are such a big figure and one of the highly paid people in the corporation, I think it can't carry on. He seems to have been a bit quieter recently, but I think it's got to be sorted out between him and Tim Davie.
Suzanne, should he stay? Should he go?
Yeah, I think he should probably go. I mean, it's whether he's freelance or not. We've all worked for the BBC, sat on this sofa. I worked for the BBC, always as a freelance. Being freelance didn't absolve me from having to follow the corporation's guidelines. I'm not a great fan of... I don't watch Match of the Day. I'm not a football person. What I have seen, I agree, he's a very good presenter. But he called me stupid once. So,
online or to your face?
Online. Online, not to my face. I've
you
never
remember the
actually
altercation?
Met him. But I can. But he just called me stupid. It made all the press, and so Lineker calls UKIP's Evans stupid, and that was that. So I'm not really going to stand up for him.
What did that encounter tell you about his character?
Well, I suppose I think what it said was he's the kind of person that just shoots his mouth off without thinking, really. And lots of people do this. And I keep saying, why, if you've got a reputation in one field, why are you going to risk that reputation by getting involved in politics and making political statements? And I think it's the same with businesses. You get some businesses who come out with some political statement, and then people either say, oh, aren't they great or aren't they awful? And you potentially then got a boycott situation on your hands. Now, Lineker's obviously still got his job at the moment, but my advice to anybody would be, look, if you're to doing a specific job and you have a reputation for a specific issue, for goodness sake, stick to that. Don't risk your career by moving outside and getting involved in politics.
He should stand for Michael. I was just thinking he should stand for Parliament.
He should, actually.
That's what he should
Yeah,
do.
he could.
He holds strong views.
Mark Chapman is a very good presenter of Match of the Day too, and in fact a superb analyst of lots of sports. So he is an obvious replacement. Yeah, stand for Parliament, or maybe even ask Keir Starmer for a peerage, because Starmer's going to be doling out loads of peerages in the next few weeks.
That was impressive, isn't there? We had Sebastian Coe in Parliament, you know, people in sport, Tanny Gray-Thompson in the Lords. There's lots of other people.
Lord Lineker, what do you think? Do you like the sound of that?
Lord Lineker of Crisp.
Oh, my God. That's it.
Lord Walker.
Lineker of Leicester. OK, well, look, folks, what do you think? Do you think that Gary Lineker should remain in post as the presenter of Match of the Day for a knockdown price of £1 million a year? gbnews.com/your say. But